This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this CBN News Watch on this Friday, August 9th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Pressure is mounting on the president and Congress to take legislative action to address gun violence following Saturday's mass shootings. President Trump responded today. Gary Lane is following this story and joins us now with more.
Before departing the White House for New York Friday, President Trump revealed he's had discussions with the NRA, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and hardline Republicans. He's optimistic legislation is forthcoming on meaningful background checks.
We have tremendous support for really common sense, sensible, important background checks. They understand we don't want insane people, mentally ill people, bad people, dangerous people. We don't want guns in the hands of the wrong people.
The president still opposes reenacting the National Assault Rifle ban. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's open to making proposals on background checks and red flag laws front and center for a consideration by the Senate. He won't bring members back from summer vacation to address the gun violence issue, but it'll be up for discussion when Congress reconvenes in September. The president believes Republicans and Democrats may come together on the issue. But what about the National Rifle Association? The president believes the NRA may eventually come around.
I think in the end, Wayne and the NRA will either be there or maybe will be a little bit more neutral, and that would be okay too.
All of this comes as the nation experiences more troublesome incidents. A man carrying an AR-15 and wearing body armor walked into a Walmart in Springfield, Missouri Thursday, spreading panic throughout the building. He reportedly had 100 rounds of ammunition with him and was seen videotaping the entire incident. The store was evacuated and he was captured by an armed off-duty firefighter. No one was shot or harmed.
Walmart is removing violent video game displays and signs from its stores. Managers received a memo this week calling for immediate action to remove the in-store advertisements. It comes following public outcry, the mass shootings, and reports that violent video games make children more violent. Walmart issued this statement: "We've taken this action out of respect for the incidents of the past week, and this action does not reflect a long-term change in our video game assortment." Walmart officials also said the retailer is not going to stop selling guns, though some gun control advocates are calling on it to do so. A little more than 2 months ago, residents of Virginia Beach began mourning the lives lost in a tragic shooting. A disgruntled city employee shot 12 people and wounded 4 others in a municipal building. It was May 31st. The city's mayor, Bobbie Dyer, joins us now to share how leaders are working to help the city recover. Now, Mayor, we know that you reached out to the mayors of both El Paso and Dayton. Can you share what the conversations were like?
Well, we didn't have the conversation yet. Obviously, they've been inundated with their responsibilities out there, with the media and addressing their constituents and everything, but I'm sure we will be back in touch. I have spoken at length to the mayor of Orlando. His name is Dyer, and the mayor of Parkland, and basically we're talking about getting together the mayors in Washington, D.C. at the Conference of Mayors and get all the people that mayors of the cities that were tragically affected by this evil, this violence, and to see what we have in common, what was done to help, and maybe compare notes and get through this together.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate club to be a member of. What is it like for cities in the aftermath of experiences like this, especially after the cameras are gone and the media is gone and people maybe not be paying as much attention?
The one thing we can never do is forget. In perpetuity, we must remember not only the victims, but the victims' families. We must also remember 4 people were tragically wounded, but especially, let's not forget the 300-plus people that were in Building 2 at that time that witnessed this carnage, that are going to have memories for the rest of their life, that, we have to embrace them from now on.
Yeah, we're going to be with you. What do you think about the national debate that follows shootings like this? We've been the subject of it, and now El Paso and Dayton the subject of national debate as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have to have a rational discussion about this. It's always tough to have a discussion when emotions are heightened, but now it's time for reasonable people to come together and see what we can actually do, what we have in common, what we can accomplish. Regretfully, after these things, you know, there's a lot of polarization that goes on, there's a lot of political divide that goes on. You know, we got to get beyond that. We got to get back as a Christian nation and do the right thing for the right reason.
Yeah, I want to get two more questions in real quickly. Virginia Beach, we know, held a prayer rally memorial service to honor the victims following this. What are your thoughts on the criticisms that we often see in times like this of just praying? People upset about seeing just that.
Well, I'll tell you what, prayer is an important ingredient. Let's not minimize that. But I think what's lacking in this country, quite frankly, is touch and empathy and being people. We're so caught up in, you know, video games and social social media and things like that. We're forgetting to learn how to communicate with each other. And I think it's important. One of the things I said, you know, at the meeting that we had at the Rock Church, that if we're going to defeat evil, let's do random acts of kindness. Let's be kinder to each other. And so this way, if we do have a fellow worker, employee, or family member that's going through a tough time, we can have that comfortable conversation, who knows, maybe diffuse something.
Yeah, and speaking of random acts of kindness, that raises my next question. What's your response to the Honor Network's efforts to help Virginia Beach?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a tremendous amount of outpouring from, you know, the entire country and everything. People are praying for us and trying to help out and, you know, raise money. But now it's up to us as a city to reach out to the cities that are going through this to help them also.
Yeah, let's get that network spurred on and again. Thank you so much, Mayor. Much appreciated. The White House is reportedly in the early stages of drafting an executive order to stop conservative censorship online. President Trump is expected to call out what he describes as unfair treatment against conservatives on Facebook, Google, and Twitter. Our White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more on this story.
That action would likely be in the form of an executive order, but the Trump administration has stopped short of releasing any specifics. We are hearing it is just a draft at this point, although, according to a White House official, the order would restore fairness to the system. President Trump has issued numerous warnings that he's watching social media giants very closely.
Massive multinational tech companies have gained enormous power to censor opinions.
The commander-in-chief accusing the tech companies of discriminating against conservatives. Now that talk possibly turning into action, with reports the White House is drafting an executive order. An official told Politico that most of Twitter is liberal cesspools of venom and that the president wants some fairness in the system. Chris, if the White House does move forward with this executive order, could they face lawsuits?
I think it's a possibility. You know, the First Amendment protects Americans from the government restricting any sort of speech.
Chris Lewis is the president and CEO of Public Knowledge. As an advocate for strong due process, he believes the user has the right to appeal any content taken down. Although Lewis says he's not seen evidence of bias against political speech. Social media users share things to express their opinions. Why do you think companies feel the need to silence them?
When there is moderation of speech online, it's typically for reasons that violate the practices and rules of the platform. And that's often for hateful, racist, violent speech. And I think that's a good thing. And it's a fair debate on if there should be that level of moderation.
Conservatives believe they've seen the bias, and many are pointing at Twitter for locking Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's re-election campaign account Thursday, after it posted video of a profanity-laden protest outside the senator's Kentucky home. McConnell's campaign manager, Kevin Golden, said Twitter will allow the words "Massacre Mitch" to trend nationally on their platform, but locks out our account for posting actual threats against us. Twitter said the account will remain locked until they delete the video. Is there a concern over violence extremism on social media?
There's definitely a concern, and this is why we need to work with the social media companies to fine-tune how they do their moderation.
And again, this executive order is in an early stage. It's not even clear what the penalties would be for violating the president's order. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
And we'll have more on these stories and others on Faith Nation this evening. You can watch it here on the CBN News Channel. A Pennsylvania county can keep a religious symbol on its historic seal. A federal appeals court issued that ruling this week. Lehigh County's seal features a cross representing early German settlers who fled persecution in their homeland. The Wisconsin-based atheist group Freedom from Religion Foundation had pushed to get the image removed, but the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit Court in Philadelphia rejected that attempt, ruling the symbol has become a part of the community. The Supreme Court will take up a case on whether transgender employees are protected in the workplace. The case involves a Christian-owned funeral home in Michigan and has implications for faith-based businesses. The funeral home requires its employees to adhere to a sex-specific dress code so their appearance does not distract grieving customers. Michigan's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission sued the business after it fired a male employee who wanted to dress in women's clothing. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the employee. The High Court will now hear the case when its next term begins in October. Still ahead, see how Christians and the church can lead on the road to racial reconciliation and unity in this country. And before we go to break, here's what's trending at cbnnews.com.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
At a time when our country is experiencing so much racial division, we thought we'd bring you a story to inspire you. Two ministers from totally different backgrounds showing us why the church is uniquely designed to lead the nation toward racial healing. Amber Strong is on this story.
The United States of America, the world's great melting pot. Each person arriving to this country with a unique family history of how their ancestors put an imprint on their lives. Yet with all that diversity, we're often more connected than you might imagine. Matthew Lockett is the great-grandchild of farmers and a pro-life advocate.
He would actually make a joke out of it, my dad, and he would say, I guess we're just a bunch of mutts from Kentucky.
Will Ford is the descendant of slaves. He travels the country sharing a message of racial healing.
They didn't think they would see freedom in their time, so they prayed for the freedom of their children and the next generation.
Two men on two very different journeys. But their worlds collided when they attended a prayer meeting together.
And I show up at the Lincoln Memorial because of this dream. I don't know why I'm there. I didn't really even know that much about prayer, but that was the first place that Will and I came together.
They attended a church service later that night. That's where Ford shared the story of his ancestors' prayer kettle, a pot used by slaves to muffle their voices during secret prayer meetings. That led to a deeper conversation, which resulted in a friendship and an unexpected partnership.
We just started running around the country together and doing prayer meetings.
The Lord said this to me. He said, if I heard the silent whispers of slaves underneath kettle pots, how much more so do I hear the silent screams of babies being aborted in this nation?
Over the next decade, they spread a message of life and love. Love for the man next to you regardless of race, and love for the unborn. But the story doesn't end there. Lockett says there was something about that first meeting he just couldn't shake.
He shared the part of the story that shocked me, that this kettle had been handed down to Harriet Lockett.
Years of research led them to a stunning discovery.
My oldest known family member was a man named Isaac Lockett. The only Locketts at that time period in Virginia was Matt's family. And so after doing 4 months of research then and another whole year of research, we've learned through empirical evidence Matt's family is the family that owned my family.
And that revelation led to some difficult soul searching.
Matt's family owned our family, and I had to wrestle with that because we had stories passed down in our family about slaves who were beat to death for simply going fishing without asking. And I really had to forgive from my heart Matt's family for owning my family.
Lockett says it was a learning experience for him too.
There is many times, particularly with white America, there can be an attitude that, you know, when these issues are discussed and the history of slavery, even the pain, the lingering pain of that to this day, there can be a negative attitude that just kind of dismisses it and says, look, you weren't there, I wasn't there, get over it. There's a very real, lingering pain associated with it generationally. And now that pain had a face, and it was the face that I love.
That discovery could have torn them apart and ended their ministry. Instead, it strengthened their resolve.
God is using a united church to heal a divided nation.
Lockett and Ford say every part of their story, even the tough parts, are by design. They say there are no coincidences, even down to the location of that first meeting.
Sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
It was here almost 55 years ago that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. Lockett and Ford believe they are living examples of that dream fulfilled. And that allows them to travel the country together, sharing their dream for the church.
I think what God is shouting to America right now is this: what storyline do you want to be a part of? The healing or the hurt? The blessing and the curse?
Two men from two different backgrounds, sharing a surprising connection and pursuing a common mission of unity, life, and healing. Amber Strong, CBN News, Washington.
And still ahead here on CBN NewsWatch, we got a look at what's trending at faithwire.com. Stay with us.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Come home to the Southern Gospel Station from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites. CBN Southern Gospel. Available now at cbnradio.com.
And welcome back. Here are this week's trending stories from faithwire.com with CBN's Jessica Chaco and FaithWire's Dan Andros.
Well, since Saturday's deadly shooting in Ohio, stories of heroism and heartbreak continue to emerge. One such story is of Kayla Miller, a critical care nurse who put her own life at risk, administering CPR to the wounded around her. Here to tell us more, Dan Andros, managing editor of FaithWire. Dan, tell us about Kayla's story.
Yeah, Kayla, like many, she was just out having a good time, enjoying an evening with her friends when the gunshots rang out, and instinctively she did what many others did. Once they realized what was happening, they tried to run for safety, but as she was running away and running for their lives, she started seeing, as she emotionally recalled, bodies starting to fall down around her, and some weren't moving, some were obviously wounded, some were obviously dead. And so her training kicked in as a nurse, and she decided to, risk her own well-being and stop running and actually go and try to minister aid to the people who were there on the ground wounded, despite the gunfire still going on. Fortunately, the shooting in Dayton, that one ended relatively quickly because the police reacted within less than a minute and were able to neutralize the shooter. But heroic action on her part. And we also learned of another heroic action that was caught on video that we have on faithwire.com of a man who was shielding his girlfriend and actually managed to kind of move her behind a little small wall that was there. And he was able to protect her, but you could just see him kind of crouching over her and protecting her as they realize, and you can actually see the bullets hitting the ground around them. So many heroic stories coming about, and of course, the most tragic one is of the couple in El Paso, Andre and Jordan, who had protected their young child, their 2-month-old, and Andre actually tried to lunge and get the gun from the shooter, but was killed as he did so, trying to protect his wife and his child. And the child ultimately survived. And actually, we have the story on faithwire.com today. President Trump went and visited, and Melania went and visited this family and paid tribute to their heroic actions.
Inspiring stories. Well, Russell Moore, the president of Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, released a statement this week calling for Christians to condemn all elements of white nationalist thinking, including those associated with the El Paso shooting. Dan, his letter to the church is very powerful and really pertinent at this time.
Yeah, and he basically just says, look, we're going to call this out. Let's not make any mistakes about this. Just as the president called out white nationalism as an evil ideology, that's what the shooter wrote in his ridiculous manifesto. But wanted to be clear and wanted to make sure that everyone knows and that Christians know that this is not something that we ascribe to in any way, shape, or form. Not that there was even any confusion about that, but he just wanted to be clear. And he said that movement's on the rise, and it's going to collide with the gospel at some point, but the gospel will win.
Thanks, Dan. To find these stories and more, just visit FaithWire on Facebook and at the web at faithwire.com.
Coming up, it's a birthday wish come true for a woman who turns 104 years old. Stay with us.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
A Holocaust survivor has marked her 104th birthday in what's being called a wonderful victory over the Nazis. Shoshana Ovitz achieved her lifelong dream of visiting the Western Wall, and she did it with 400 of her family members. Ovitz was sent to Auschwitz concentration camp at the age of 30. There she experienced the horrible death of her mother. But Ovitz managed to survive the camp that facilitated the murders of more than 1 million Jews. She especially requested that all of her family join her at the Western Wall to celebrate her special day. Not everyone's able to make it, but more than 400 did, including children, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always get more on the issues you care most about at CBNNews.com. You can also watch CBN News programs anytime throughout the day on the CBN News Channel. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you Monday.